So last time we had class, we talked about culture and how culture influences rituals around the world. We visited 6 different countries and we looked at how the cultures in that country affect the ritual. And even though it's the same ritual in all these different countries, it looks different in different countries because cultural has that kind of influence on ritual. There's a couple of other things that have an influence on ritual that we're going to talk about. We're only going to do one more today, and it's very short. We're going to talk today a little bit about learning styles. At this point, you've probably discussed learning styles either in your other classes or in seminar, but learning styles themselves can have a little bit of an impact on ritual. And then there's 2 more that we're going to cover, not today, but in future classes. And those are the sources of belief. There are 4 sources of belief. And the love languages. There are 5 love languages. And by the way, when we say love languages, we mean something different than Romance languages like French, Italian, Spanish. We love languages are something different. So we're going to talk about the 4 sources of belief and the 5 love languages in future classes, so don't worry about those yet. Today we're going to just touch on learning styles, and that's going to be all. So looking at these 4 learning styles, visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, these really just look or affect the way that you learn material. In other words, if you're a visual learner, you like to see things presented to you visually. If you're an auditory learner, you like to listen, you hear, you take in information through your ears. There's reading and writing. You like to see it written in front of you and you like to write it down. You learn best taking notes. And then, of course, kinesthetic means you're actually putting it into practice physically, like doing a lab in science class, for instance. The learning styles may at first glance not seem to have a whole lot to do with ritual, especially religious rituals, but they actually do. And if you think about it, they apply directly to how we like to worship and how we like to practice our faith. For example, if you are a visual learner, you probably like to practice rituals that have a lot of visual components. Maybe you belong to a church that has lots of stained glass windows and lots of visual elements. If you're an auditory learner, you maybe your worship services or worship services that attract you may have a lot more to do with music or auditory stimulation, which is usually music or at least the spoken word to some extent. Reading and writing will usually have more scripture work or working directly with the Bible. And then of course you have kinesthetic, which is more of this movement of the body incorporated into worship. And keep in mind that all of these different practices of religious worship can come from the same faith. You can find Catholic churches all over the world, but Catholic churches all over the world don't all look the same because depending on how you put the liturgy together, especially the kinds of people that are putting it together or the kinds of people that they assume are going to be in their audience, you will see different practices put into place because of the different learning styles. Now, that's all we're going to cover today. I just wanted to briefly touch on learning styles. Our next class, we are going to be talking about the 4 sources of belief. If you don't know what those are, you shouldn't because we haven't talked about them yet. So sit tight. We'll talk about that next time. And of course, we will then be going into the 5 love languages. I wanted to mention these today because they do have something to do with the project that I'm about to assign. So I wanted you to be aware we're going to be talking about them. but we haven't talked about them yet. So if you hear me reference the 4 sources or the 5 love languages, and you don't know what that is, don't worry, we're covering it soon. That's all for today. Go ahead on to the next video, and I will see you next time.